If you get the tea right, if you use the right salutation, don't sit in the chair that's their chair. It's often the small things that are really important.
You're listening to the Care Podcast, brought to you by Unique Senior Care. We're here to share honest, practical conversations to help you navigate care. And in these episodes, we're welcoming Lucy, our Director of People. Lucy has a wealth of experience in the care industry, specifically around people management, finding, recruiting and training the right carers for outstanding care. Thank you so much for joining us, Lucy. So one of the things that we all want and hope that we would receive if we're having care for a loved one or for ourselves would be respect. But I wonder, what does that actually look like in day-to-day care? How can a caregiver show respect to that individual they're caring for?
Yeah. And for me, respect is really important. It's paramount, for our clients and our caregivers. And on that, it is a two-way thing. You need to be able to show respect for others and get respect as well. So really important. Respect is, doing what you say you're going to do. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's one of the biggest ways that you're going to lose trust and respect. I think it's being... you've got to be sounds like the subject matter expert of that, and that the client is the subject matter, isn't it? So the more you can be the expert for that client and their intricate care needs, the better, because you know exactly what they need, when they need it. You're almost preempting it, aren't you? So you're being very attentive. And I think respect is showing compassion. I think it's really important because we might not have had the condition that the client's got. Very rarely we would do. But being compassionate and empathetic, I think, is going to go a long way for being respectful to the clients, and remembering that you are a professional. So you're a professional and you're in somebody else's home. Your workspace is actually their house. So it's being mindful of the holistic, kind of care that you're giving to the client as well.
And how might a carer show respect around things like routines or preferences or particular, maybe a cultural background of the client, things like that?
So asking. So inclusion is really important. So not just assuming, even if you've read the care plan. For me, it's still, so tell me, it could be a cup of tea. How do you like your tea, Joe? Have it black with 2 sugars, and I like my spoon on the side. So sometimes even if you know things, it's still polite just to ask. Cultural differences, definitely kind of reading the care plans. Could be getting information from family members, could be doing your own research. But again, it's that collaboration, asking the client, don't make any assumptions, asking the client, how would you like to do this or X, Y and Z, and making sure that they're involved in every single part of their care.
And what about if the carer has a very different set of values or beliefs to that person or ways of doing things? What would be important then?
You have to park it at the door. So the minute you open the door, you go over the threshold of the door, you do, to some extent, have to park your values and your beliefs, if they're slightly different to the client's, at the door. But as long as our values, are aligned, in the important way, then that's going to be kind of okay with the client. But yeah, sometimes you might not agree with them, but it's just having that professional approach and saying, I know when to be quiet. So again, I'm going to seek their guidance, ask for their input. I might not agree with it, but actually I'm going to be professional and I'm going to keep quiet.
What about, if they like to do things in a way that just doesn't make sense to you, or in some cases actually, or you think there's a better way to do this or a safer way, or what would be the approach then?
However the client likes it, really, unless it was unsafe. Because again, it's person-centred care. We're in their house. So I always try and understand, or help me understand. We had a client who used to wash her eggs before she would cook them, but that was just a preference that she wanted. If you've got to wash the eggs before you crack them, then that's absolutely fine. But you've got to realise that, you're in their home and you've got to be led by them, really, as long as it's safe. And then if it's not safe, seeking advice, speaking with your line manager and making sure that we risk assess the situation. But you'll learn new things and you'll experience new things.
Yeah, and there is that value of, when you go into someone and they do have a different set of beliefs or a different background to yourself, it's just so wonderful
It's
to hear
interesting.
people's stories and
Yeah,
learn about
absolutely.
their ways of doing things.
Absolutely. It could be, history, it could be food, it could be, culture and how we, how we act and how we behave. I think you've got to see it as something really interesting. You're learning from the client.
Mm. Mm. And anything else that you think is important around respectful care delivery?
I think you've got to be really, really open. I think, it comes with, being polite, being professional. And again, I think it's being having that agility. So when you're there, you've got to be really reactive on the day. And as I say, like respect's a two-way thing. So you've got to, what you say you're going to do, you've got to make sure that you do. And that builds the trust and the respect for the client.
What might be some small ways that a caregiver can show respect?
So it's asking questions of the client and making sure that they're involved. It's making sure that you treat them as a person and that they keep their identity. And looking, what does that identity look like? So don't make any assumptions. What is it that makes them them? What do they like to do? What do they like to eat? What's really important, and make sure that you bring that into the care as well. So it's not just about, kind of like washing and bathing and medications, but what else would help the client to feel like themselves. So it might be one client used to like going and getting her hair done because that was her identity. She always had her hair done. She had her makeup done and she'd lost that. She hadn't been out of the house for quite some time. And when she did that, she felt absolutely amazing, beaming from ear to ear, and she felt like herself again. For others, it might be, going to like a football game or a rugby game that they haven't been able to do. So it's what makes them feel like themselves, and asking. Don't make any assumptions. Make sure you ask them.
Brilliant. And anything else around identity? How, sometimes as we become older or we lose our mobility or our independence, it feels a bit like we've lost who we are because we can't do the things that we used to do.
Yeah.
What other ways might a caregiver work with somebody to find and restore that identity?
So you need to be creative. So it might be that my mum loves going to the theatre. So actually now what they do is they put the radio on or they'll watch a production. Instead of going to London and going to the theatre, they go to the local cinema and you can watch the theatre production from there. So you sometimes need to be really creative. If, say, somebody had got Parkinson's and they used to draw a lot, what else can you do? Are there any other kind of like tools or like computer-aided design that you could use that would help them so they're still drawing? Or do they still have that love for art? Although they can't draw themselves, you take them to a museum or you take photos. So it's just, sometimes you've got to think outside the box.
Yeah, really good point, because, maybe they can't do things in the way that they used to, but there is some way that they can express that uniqueness.
Absolutely, yeah. And it could be, somebody, it could be really isolating. Somebody has lost their sight. And going in and say, right, well, let me read the newspaper for you. Let's put the radio on again. Let's put some plays on, and trying to, stimulate and do other things.
Anything else you've seen or come across where you've seen a carer kind of really show a respect to somebody or do something that's had an impact?
I think it was... I think it was somebody who, they used to like the war, so they almost like decorated the room with like bunting, and they would like have these tanks scattered around. So they just decorated the house basically because the gentleman couldn't leave the house. So he was like, right, well, let's bring everything to you. So it just epitomised, person-centred care to make sure that whatever the client was interested in, we can do that in their environment if they couldn't leave the house.
Brilliant. And what would be your one key takeaway when we're thinking about this topic of respect?
Yeah. So really important that it's probably one of the most important things. Even go so far as asking people, what does respect look like? It might be that you use somebody's salutation, and if you get that wrong, the client just doesn't like you then. So it's finding out what's important to the client. It's getting the respect of the family members and your colleagues as well. Yeah.
So maybe as small but important as, using the right name or the right term.
It's often the small things. If you get the tea right, if you use the right salutation, don't sit in the chair that's their chair. It's often the small things that are really important.
Thank you to everyone for listening. We hope that this episode has given you some confidence, practical advice and reassurance about navigating your own care journey. I've been Jo Cleary, host of the Care Podcast. We hope that you'll join us next time.